There's a big problem in this world where I can explain to you all the rules and regulations of this sport better than those people that are put on the TV to explain them to you. That's a problem. A racing guideline breached with a question mark. Oh, this is the question for debate, is how they present it. This is a problem. When the governing body of the sport applies the regulations differently to different drivers, and when the media presenting it can't talk straight, that's a problem. So this is what happens. This is the regulation. When they try and present here, they're asking the question: a racing guideline breached? Is one breached or not? And they say the driving standard guidelines provide that when overtaking on the inside, the driver must not force the other car off the track and must leave a fair and acceptable width for the car being overtaken. This did not occur, and hence, as it didn't occur, this driver, which in this case is George Russell, got a 5-second time penalty. Now, this is the standard. It says, however, in mitigation, a 5-second penalty is imposed instead of the standard 10-second penalty because the stewards determined that the forcing off track was not deliberate, and the driver of car 63 was in control of the car at all times. Now, I would say that he wasn't in control, because if the rules are that you have to leave track room for the car on your outside and you haven't, well, you're not in sufficient control to leave the other car track room. So that doesn't demonstrate control, does it? But the stewards have given him just 5-second penalty rather than 10 seconds by saying, well, at least he himself remained on the track. So we adjudicate that as him being in control. Even though he's breached regulations, he's not in control because he's not done what he needs to do. When you leave the track yourself, you're not in control. You're not even in control of your own car to keep your own car on the track. So that's not a mitigating circumstance that would reduce a 10-second penalty to a 5-second penalty. Now, let's just go through this, and I'm going to go through what Ted Kravitz and Christian Horner are allowed to say on the media in front of us all. Two situations, pretty much identical dynamics. So the first one, and ignore the fact that it's lap one. Lap one incidents are determined when there is a bottleneck of cars, when there's 20 cars all going into the same space. If cars have to leave the track to avoid a collision, then the stewards won't penalise them situations necessarily. They will look at the circumstances and make their decisions based on what is common sense at that point in time. Later on round the lap, the field is spread out. We are now racing. It's not just because we're on lap one, it's still a free-for-all. No, we are now racing, and if you commit an infringement in accordance with these regulations and guidelines, then you are committing an infringement that you will get penalised for. So we have a car that's in the lead and a car that then will attack it. So let's have a look. Car in the lead, now being attacked. So what we can see on the side of the track is the yellow marker is a 150 board. This is the 100 board. This is the 50 board. Okay, so at the 50 board, then this red car is still behind. Okay, what happens? And look at the lines that they're approaching this corner into as well. They're staying wide so they can carry as much speed through there as possible. If you move across to the right here and take a tighter line in, you've got to go much slower because you cannot carry that momentum through that corner. The wider you keep that sweep, which is why they have the racing line, the wider you can keep the sweep, the faster that you can go. And remain on track. Which car is ahead at the apex? It's absolutely irrelevant. It happens to be the red car. Do the stewards say, well, the red car, the Ferrari, was ahead at this point, and therefore the Ferrari has got it with it can place itself wherever it wants to place itself? No, that's not the rules, is it? The Ferrari has run the Red Bull off track. Okay, it's not left track room on its outside for the Red Bull, and not only has it not left room on the outside for the Red Bull, forcing that Red Bull off track, it has gone off track itself. Okay, The car that was in the lead going into that corner was the Red Bull car. What happens now? The Ferrari has yielded, and so that the car that was going into the lead, going into the corner, has now rejoined in the lead again. Okay, you cannot gain a position by going off the track like that. So the Ferrari didn't gain the position, it yielded. Had it have gained the position, it would have been subject to a 10-second penalty because it didn't remain on the track. So it didn't contest that position. It allowed the Red Bull car to rejoin the track in the lead. So despite the Ferrari driving out of control, despite the Ferrari putting in a late lunge up the inside, forcing the other car off the track, it did not gain position by doing so. And hence, it's gave them the place back, and hence the stewards will not penalise that. Because the manoeuvre made no difference to those cars' positions. The car that was in the lead going into the corner has rejoined the track in the lead. Not a problem. Second example. Look along here. Norris now just moved up to third position because he's overtaken. So the car in the lead is the car on the outside. The orange car is in the lead. Third position in this race as displayed on the leaderboard. The car now in fourth is trying to put in the overtake. These cars are not as wide on the track as previously. Verstappen is not as wide as Sainz was, so Verstappen has got to take less speed into the corner in order to make it around. Where they are at that stage is absolutely irrelevant. The attacking car on the inside has to leave track room for the car on the outside. The car on the outside is not left any room whatsoever. In fact, the car on the inside has gone off track, attempting to make that overtake. He's forced the car on the outside, the car that was in the lead going into the corner, off the track. The car rejoins in the lead again. So the car that was in the lead before the corner has now rejoined the car in the lead, just in the same way it happened on lap 1. So there should be no problem, other than the fact that this guy has forced him off. That's the problem. And the stewards decide that they want to penalise the car that was forced off. That's a problem. That's a problem that's being perpetrated by the FIA. And what is also a problem is that it's being perpetrated by these people that are put in front of us to validate it. Now, this is the latest one. If you go on the Skysports F1 webpage, you can see Ted Kravitz. They presented him. How was Lando Norris's penalty actually decided? With the little, the thoughtful face emoji. A racing guideline breached. It's asking the question, isn't it? So tell us, Ted. Ted can't look at the camera properly. Ted is lying. Look at Ted's body language. Oh, I bet you we need some sound on this. Let's try this again. And let's just make sure we're back to the start. Here we go.
So the rules are set. The interpretation of those rules is agreed on by the teams and the drivers and the Grand Prix Drivers Association, and everybody knows how the interpretation of those rules are going to be. And then based on that,
everybody knows how they're going to be, don't they, Ted? Everybody knows how they're going to be. So like we saw on lap 1, Carlos Sainz attacked up the inside. Okay, he couldn't make that move stick. He ran the other car off the track, so he didn't maintain that position. Max Verstappen has tried to attack up the inside. He couldn't make it stick. He ran the other car off track. And Max Verstappen is demanding that the other car gives the place back. Oh, so they all know, do they, Ted?
That the stewards look at or the race director gives an instruction to the steward.
Look up, Ted. Stop lying. Look us in the face and tell the truth.
or the stewards can look at an incident themselves. They can say, A, was a regulation breached, or was a racing guideline breached?
We're full of questions. We're not full of answers, are we, Ted? Okay, we keep asking the questions of everybody. You're the people that can provide the answers. You don't need to ask us the questions.
And if it was, then what is the consistent penalty, the penalty that's consistent with previous decisions?
Yes. What happened on lap 1?
And it's as simple as that, really.
What happened with George Russell? What happened with Yuki Tsunoda? Oh, the car that was attacking on the inside that didn't leave track room for the car on the outside was penalised with a 5-second penalty.
So if you're Lando and you pass outside the track,
So what was Max Verstappen doing? Was he passing outside the track on lap 1? Who was doing the passing? The car that was behind was the one that was attempting to make the manoeuvre. Carlos Sainz was attempting to make the manoeuvre on Lando Norris, wasn't he? Yes, he was. Carlos Sainz was attempting to pass. What did I say? Lando Norris. Carlos Sainz was attempting to pass Max Verstappen on lap 1. He's the one that went up the inside. He forced Max Verstappen off track. He then had to yield. Max Verstappen, the car ahead, while he maintained position.
Even bearing in mind that, as Red Bull say, as McLaren say, Max was also outside the track, but only a little bit outside the track. Only sort of technically, Lando was properly off the track. Then
was Max properly off the track on lap 1? Shall we have a look how far Max was off the track on lap 1? So there he is. Can you see that over there? In fact, let me just make that full screen for us all. There he is. Oh, he's over here. He's in the red zone. Okay. So this is how far Lando was off the track, yeah? And this is how far Max was off the track on lap 1. Yeah, can we see the difference, everybody? Can we see the difference? Let me know what you think in the comments section, Ted. Savage Garden. Anyway,
and the stewards say, okay, what is the regulation? What is the Max was? If you're Lando and you pass outside the track, bearing in mind that, as Red Bull say, as McLaren say, Max was also outside the track, but only a little bit outside the track. Only sort of technically, Lando was properly off the track.
Where was Max? Max was in a different country then, wasn't he?
Then the stewards say, okay, what is the regulation? What does the guideline say? Guideline says, was he fully ahead or predominantly ahead at the apex? They decided no.
Nothing to do with it. Were you concerned about whose nose was ahead on the apex on lap 1?
No, he wasn't, because I think the apex, at that point, they were judging it as the middle of the corner, which is the normal
no part of it whatsoever. Again, you're embellishing a bullshit lie that's not even part of this.
Judgment of an apex, and McLaren was saying, it was a bit early of the apex, and he was.
And this is what they have to do. They have to put these people, these faces in front of us to try and bring into it. Oh, we have to judge it by this criteria that's not a judgment criteria.
Alongside or ahead when they turned in. And then once they...
See, there's nothing about what you're saying or the way that you're saying it is truthful, is it, Ted? We can all tell this by your body language.
Decide that it was a breach of the guidelines, then it's simple. Then they look at what the penalty is, and the penalty is a 5-second penalty. Unless, now the other confusion is that, all right.
Oh, we'll introduce confusion again. Isn't it strange that everybody seems to be confused about this sport? See, I'm not. See, I can tell you the clear parameters as to what's acceptable and what isn't, and yet the sport, the FIA are confused, and Skysports F1, the broadcasters, are confused. That's strange, isn't it? Isn't it a strange world we live in, where everybody is confused about everything and nobody can define parameters for what's the difference between right and wrong in the context of a given situation? What does that enable? That enables everybody to argue that what it is they're doing is somehow acceptable. That enables these bastards at the top to present things in their way to present that they're okay. That enables people that commit crime to spend lots of money on a fancy lawyer, a good lawyer, one of those that creates an argument for them to absolve them of consequence for criminality. That is what this is doing. That is exactly what this is teaching children. You are filth. You are absolute filth. Each and every one of these people put in front of us to present these things, these ways, are subverting values in this world. They are absolute filth. Scum. Scum. And they don't care how this affects you and your life and the lives of your children and the world that your children are growing up in. They are subverting values. And they're being paid to do so, and they'll happily do it because they sit well above this. They're being happily well paid. They don't send their children to the same schools that you have to send your children to. No, they don't have to worry about the conflict in society. No, they're doing quite well.
Track limits, you can talk all about that. In the olden days, there was a race director's opinion, and the team,
again, embellishing it, lying it. In the olden days, there was a race director's opinion.
Could say to either Charlie Whiting or any of his successors. And
any of Charlie Whiting's successors, who might they have been? Who might Charlie Whiting's successors been? Oh, the name that nobody can say anymore.
It seems like Niels Wittich now doesn't doesn't get involved, and so just says, it's not me, it's with the stewards.
Okay, and this is because the race director, his role is to ensure the safe running of the event and make sure that that event is ran in accordance with the regulations of the sport, to ensure safety and to ensure sporting fairness in accordance with those regulations. That is the race director's role. Any refereeing decisions, okay, for incidents that occur within that race are determined by the referees, which are the stewards. But after Abu Dhabi, these people, Skysports tried to present us that the race director, the referee, has at his discretion what he wants to do, and whether he does this, it's just like a refereeing decision. And the team shouldn't be getting at the referee like that. No. The race director is in charge of safety and ensuring those regulations are enacted to ensure sporting fairness. Those who adjudicate on the decisions, the refereeing decisions, are the stewards. That's how it works. But again, when the media present it, they present it in a different way to get us to try to believe it to be a different way. This is the problem. We're all being lied to in this world by people like this put in front of us to try and lie to us, to try and confuse us, to try and feed you a false narrative so that the truth doesn't get exposed and they get away with what they want to achieve out of it.
But I think this would be a more elegant way of doing it. Charlie Whiting could have said, well, you could put it to the stewards, but I don't fancy your chances. And that was...
And all this is just a story, isn't it, that's irrelevant. The relevant thing was what I've just explained to you at the start of this video when I showed you the video. We've got an overtaking manoeuvre where the car on the inside pushed the other one off track, and it didn't then try to have that position. It realised it had pushed the other car off track, so it allowed that other car to... Well, the car that was ahead going into the corner, rejoining the lead. No further action required. The car that committed the infringement, the one that went too fast into the corner, attempting to make the overtake, didn't make it stick. Nothing was changed in terms of the race running order. No action required. That's where it was adjudicated. The other incident was the attacking car going into the corner, forced the other car off track, and then demands to be given the place back. And the stewards award a 5-second penalty against the car that was in the lead and that got forced off, came back on the track in the lead still, and then they gave it a 5-second penalty. That's not consistent. That is a corrupt organisation awarding a result to a certain individual. And then we've got these faces in the media that come on here to try to lie to validate it, and it's just truly filthy. Subverting values, teaching kids that rules aren't the rules, and as long as you can come up with an argument and you can lie to people and you can present it this way or that way, you can get away with anything. This is filth. This is scum. People like you, Ted Kravitz, You are waste people. You are absolutely disgusting human beings.
Charlie's way of saying, I think you should give the place back. And that enabled, and that was part of Lando's frustration afterwards at his own team, of saying, well, look, if you thought it was borderline and that I was going to get this penalty, tell me, I'll give him the place back on the same lap and then have another go somewhere else.
And look what he's doing now. He's trying to then project it, and embellishing the lie by saying, well, it's McLaren now. If McLaren thought it was borderline whether Lando should have been getting the penalty or not, then they should have perhaps conceded the position. This is not the offence, is it? The offence is the car that was in 4th place, attacking for 3rd, went around that corner and didn't leave 3rd place. The car that was in 3rd place going into that corner didn't leave it track room on the exit. It forced it off the track. And therefore, that's an illegal overtake by Max Verstappen. And therefore, you can't maintain that position. He didn't maintain that position. Lando Norris rejoined ahead of him. But then Max Verstappen demands that Lando Norris gives that place back. And the stewards concede to Max Verstappen's will. And Kravitz here is now spinning us the yarn, saying, well, McLaren should have thought, oh, do we try and get 5 seconds ahead of Max for when they give us that 5-second penalty? All lies. All lies. Now, I'm going to go and do the video on Horner, but I'm going to make that as a separate video because, again, like I say, I'm aware that certain people have only got a shorter attention span, so I'll make them separate videos. Thank you for your time on this one.